In 2017, Olivia Kinga, 20-year-old college student from upstate New York, accepted a babysitting job that would unravel a mystery no one could explain. Olivia was barely keeping afloat. With mounting tuition bills and rent due every month, she was desperate for a break when she spotted a Craigslist ad promising $300 for one night of babysitting. The ad was curt, with a single condition: no questions asked. Stay off your phone. Curiosity mixed with necessity led Olivia to reply. The only correspondence came from someone signing as M&M. They arranged a meeting at a house in a quiet, tree-lined suburb off Maple Street, a neighborhood where even the streetlights seemed tired. That Friday evening, Olivia took a bus, then an Uber to the address. The house looked unremarkable at first. Modest, two-story home with darkened windows and a flickering porch light. But the closer she got, the more unsettling it felt. When the door finally creaked open, Olivia was met by a middle-aged couple, their eyes distant and expressions blank. They didn't introduce themselves. Instead, they handed her a basic flip phone. Use this only in a real emergency, the man said in a flat tone, while the woman added softly, no phones. It upsets the child. Olivia tried asking about the child, about the specifics of the job, but the couple exchanged a brief, unreadable glance. Then, without another word, the man gestured silently toward the narrow staircase before they vanished from view. Inside, the house was shrouded in dim light and heavy silence. Olivia ascended the creaking stairs, her footsteps echoing in the confined space. At the end of a narrow corridor, a slightly ajar door beckoned. Inside was a bare crib, an antique porcelain doll in faded blue, and a baby monitor perched on a rickety table. But something was wrong. The monitor played a warped lullaby melody that seemed to run in reverse, and every so often it emitted a faint giggle that wasn't mechanical at all. As Olivia leaned in closer, the monitor crackled, and in a chilling moment, a voice whispered her name, Olivia, in a tone that sent shivers down her spine. Heart pounding, she rushed to the front door. It wouldn't budge. The handle turned, but the door remained locked. When she checked the windows, the same oppressive feeling of entrapment returned. Even the flip phone was silent, offering no connection to the outside world. As midnight approached, the house itself began to betray a strange, living quality. The walls seemed to pulse as if they were breathing, and the lights flickered in a rhythmic, almost deliberate pattern. Then came the unexplainable sound of footsteps overhead, sound that shouldn't have been possible, as the house held only 2 floors. Panicking, Olivia grabbed a kitchen knife and barricaded herself in the bathroom. There, in the cramped, tiled space, she listened to the monitor's eerie mix of lullaby and whispered voices. Time became a blur. When she finally gathered enough courage to peek out, her watch read 9 p.m., a stark contrast to the long, harrowing night she'd endured. When Olivia finally forced her way out, the front door stood wide open, inviting her back to the ordinary world. But the house was no longer what it had been. It was a desolate, abandoned shell empty, with bare walls coated in dust and cobwebs, as if the previous inhabitants had vanished without a trace. Shaken and desperate to understand, Olivia fled. Later that day, trembling with uncertainty, she discovered that the promised $300 had been wired directly to her bank account with a single cryptic note. Thanks for watching. A few days later, while sorting through her sparse belongings at her apartment, Olivia found a faded newspaper clipping taped inconspicuously to the back of her fridge. The article detailed the mysterious disappearance of a babysitter in 1997, a babysitter whose photograph bore an uncanny resemblance to Olivia's own features. The report mentioned that the house on Maple Street had been foreclosed in 2022, long before anyone had claimed to live there. Local police investigations turned up no leads. The house, as records confirmed, had been abandoned for years. Yet every detail of that night remained etched in Olivia's memory. Friends noted a lasting change in her demeanor, a constant vigilance, a haunted look in her eyes whenever the phone rang unexpectedly. Now, even as the years pass, the case remains unsolved. The identity of M and M is still a mystery, and the true nature of that night remains an open wound in the town's dark history. In hushed conversations and online forums, whispers circulate about another Craigslist ad similar in tone and promise, suggesting that the cycle might still be repeating, waiting for the next desperate soul. Olivia's story isn't just a tale of supernatural terror. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the line between reality and nightmare can blur in an instant, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and unhealed scars. What if free rent came at the price of your very soul? In the fall of 2021, Tyler Kalinza, 27-year-old software engineer, struggling to pay off his student loans, found himself captivated by a Craigslist ad that promised a luxury room in a downtown loft, rent-free. The ad was simple, almost too good to be true. Roommate, wanted, quiet, respectful, willing to share space. No rent, no questions. Tyler was skeptical at first, but desperation and the lure of debt-free living pushed him to respond. The listing led him to a renovated loft on West 23rd Street, right in the heart of the city's bustling art district. The building was modern and immaculate, a stark contrast to his modest apartment. He met the owner that very night, a man named Mark Davis. Mark was in his mid-30s, impeccably dressed, with an air of calm precision. Neighbors described him as polite and meticulous, someone who ran his life and his property with military efficiency. Yet, there was one rule that struck Tyler as oddly out of place in such a refined environment. Don't go in the basement. For the first week, everything seemed normal. Tyler settled into the spacious room, marveling at the designer finishes and the city skyline visible from his window. But then, as midnight approached on his 7th night, strange sounds began to seep through the silence. At precisely 11 p.m., Tyler heard a faint, dragging noise like metal chains scraping along concrete. Soon after, a low, almost rhythmic hum started echoing through the corridors. Neighbors later confirmed they'd heard similar sounds and whispered about odd chanting coming from the building. Unable to shake his growing curiosity, and increasingly disturbed by his own insomnia, Tyler decided to investigate. One evening, when Mark was out for a meeting and the apartment was silent, Tyler took a deep breath, grabbed a flashlight, and picked the lock to the basement door. The moment he descended the narrow staircase, a powerful stench of decaying metal and damp earth assaulted his senses. The basement was a world apart from the polished loft above. Its concrete walls were lined with strange symbols and graffiti that looked disturbingly ritualistic. Tyler's flashlight beam danced over dozens of photos, yellowed with age, each one featuring missing persons whose faces were eerily similar to those reported in cold cases from the late 90s. Then he saw it. An enormous, cracked mirror mounted on the far wall. As Tyler's eyes adjusted to the gloom, he noticed something impossible. The mirror wasn't reflecting the basement it lit, was showing Mark Davis, standing in the room behind him. Mark's reflection in the mirror was unnervingly clear. He was smiling softly. His eyes locked onto Tyler's in a way that felt both welcoming and menacing. Tyler spun around. The basement was empty. No one stood there except him. His heart pounded as he turned back to the mirror. Mark's image remained, frozen in that uncanny smile. He bolted back upstairs, the basement door slamming shut behind him as if it had never been open. Mark was downstairs later that night, humming that same low, hypnotic tune that Tyler had heard before. Mark's calm demeanor hadn't wavered in the least, even when asked about the basement. "It's just where I store old records," he said with a dismissive shrug, as if that explained everything. The following morning, After a sleepless night filled with nightmares and whispered echoes, Tyler checked his email. Attached was a digital receipt for a bank transfer of $300. The rent-free living offer apparently wasn't free after all. The accompanying note was cryptic. "Thanks for watching." Haunted by what he'd seen, Tyler reported his experience to the local authorities. A police report confirmed that the building's basement had been abandoned since 2012 following a series of unsolved disappearances linked to occult gatherings in the area. Surveillance footage from the building's exterior showed no sign of any basement entry for years. Yet Tyler's testimony, combined with similar accounts from other residents in the complex, began to stir rumors among the community. Newspaper clippings and online forums started piecing together a disturbing pattern. Other tenants had reported missing time, strange noises, and unexplained images in reflective surfaces. Some even claimed that the entity in the mirror wasn't just a trick of the light, but a persistent presence, watching them from the shadows. By the time a new Craigslist ad appeared, it was almost as if the cycle had reset. The new listing read, "Roommate wanted, quiet, respectful. Previous occupant moved out." The ad carried none of the unsettling details of the past, but those who knew the story whispered that the entity and its message was still very much alive. Tyler's experience remains one of the most baffling and chilling cases in the city's modern urban legends. Was it a carefully orchestrated psychological experiment? A relic of occult practices? Or something far more sinister that defies explanation? One thing is certain. In the world of Craigslist ads and modern living, sometimes the best deals come with the darkest secrets. What if the dream of a big break turned into your worst nightmare? In the early autumn of 2019, Samantha Taylor, a 19-year-old aspiring model from Phoenix, Arizona, was barely keeping her dreams afloat. Struggling with mounting bills and a fierce determination to make it in the fashion world, she answered a Craigslist ad that promised $500 for a one-day photo shoot. The ad was polished and professional, featuring a portfolio of striking images, high-end gear, and a studio located near Roosevelt Row in downtown Phoenix. The photographer, who went by Eli, seemed too good to be true. His portfolio boasted work in vintage horror themes, and his studio appeared to be a well-established creative space. Yet, something in his measured, almost clinical tone left an unsettling impression. When Samantha arrived at the studio early one crisp September morning, everything appeared genuine. State-of-the-art lighting, pristine backdrops, and camera rigs that belonged in a high-fashion magazine shoot. Eli greeted her with a firm handshake and a polite nod, his eyes never quite meeting hers. He was soft-spoken, his manner cool and detached, a stark contrast to the passionate energy Samantha had expected. The shoot began innocently enough. Simple headshots, natural poses, laughter in between takes. But then, Eli produced a white dress, delicate and antique, that Samantha hadn't brought with her. He explained it was for a special series he was working on, a collection that delved into the haunting beauty of fear. Without warning, he instructed her to wear the dress and to stand perfectly still, her face frozen in an expression of genuine terror. Confused and unnerved, Samantha hesitated and asked why. Eli's response was chillingly simple. "It's for the collection." But the white dress would not fit, and Samantha refused to wear it. At that moment, the familiar click of a camera shutter was replaced by a subtle electronic beep each time he pressed the button. As the session progressed, Samantha noticed something disturbing. Every time Eli captured an image, he would walk over to a wall behind the set and pin the photo in a neat row. As she stole glances, her blood ran cold. The wall was filled with dozens of photographs, each one depicting a young woman in that very same white dress he had tried to make her wear, each one with the same frozen, terrified look on her face. The images were dated, some going back several years, others alarmingly recent. None of the women in the photos had ever smiled. They were trapped in a moment of raw, unfiltered fear. The realization hit Samantha like a punch to the gut. She remembered a local news story from 1998 about several young models who vanished under mysterious circumstances, their cases unsolved, their images haunting the community. Her heart pounded as she connected the dots. This wasn't just an art project. It was something far more sinister. After that one surreal session, Samantha fled the studio in a daze barefoot and without a bag, her only thought to escape the tightening grip of dread. She spent the rest of the day in a blur of panic and disbelief, calling a friend to share her experience. But the words felt too surreal to truly register. In the weeks that followed, Samantha wrestled with her memory of that day. She reported the incident anonymously to local authorities, but no concrete evidence could be gathered. Eli and his studio had vanished without a trace. Online, however, rumors began to swirl. An investigative blogger discovered scattered mentions of Eli's collection in obscure forums and found that several former assistants had similar accounts of eerie photo shoots and inexplicable, haunting imagery. Then, just as Samantha was beginning to convince herself that it had all been a terrible mistake, a new Craigslist ad appeared. The ad was nearly identical. A call for a model for a one-day shoot in downtown Phoenix, the same alluring promise of $500, the same polished images in the portfolio. But this time, the sample photos showed a different young woman in the white dress yet. Her expression was identical to the ones Samantha had seen on that wall. The ad was flagged and removed within 24 hours by vigilant users, but the unsettling truth lingered. Samantha learned from a local online community that the studio's address was nothing more than a rented mailbox, and that no legitimate business existed under Eli's name. The chilling conclusion emerged. The collection was not an art project, but a ritualistic compendium capturing raw terror, as if preserving the very essence of fear itself. Samantha's story has since become one of Phoenix's most unsettling urban legends, a cautionary tale whispered among aspiring models and creatives alike. It serves as a grim reminder that sometimes the promise of success comes with a price far higher than money. In a world of glossy ads and filtered dreams, beware the offer that seems too perfect, because sometimes the nightmare is real, and the only thing left behind are haunting images and unanswered questions. If a deal seems too good to be true, remember, not every door that opens leads to light, and sometimes the darkest secrets hide behind the lens.
Like, subscribe, and comment.